Hello, Gulu MEM Adult Literacy Project trainees. GOOM. This is the Opuk training in Luo in English literacy development. Today, or this month, we are going to be talking about literacy learning modes. So, based on some of your um, homework responses the last time, we've organized this training specifically around um, approaches to teaching literacy. Okay, so I want to break this down into two paradigms, right? There's literacy development, and then there is language learning. Literacy development is, and both of these categories of literacy development and language learning cross um, domains. They both share a lot of things in common. However, conventionally, we do not see these realms as being a coexisting state, right? So there is either literacy development in a particular language, or there is language learning, which we consider conventionally in a different thing. And in Gulu at MEM, you are really doing both of these things at the same time. Okay? So if we break down literacy development conventionally starts after substantial language development has happened, right? So we're saying by the time a child goes to school, then they begin to learn to read and write in whatever their language is, right? But they've already learned their language uh, before this, right? And 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 so most curriculum assumes that the learner is a child. So all of you are dealing with adult learners, whereas the curriculum for literacy development is mostly designed for with the assumption that the learner is in maybe in kindergarten or maybe in first grade, second grade, third grade. It's it we we uh, we see that the process of literacy development as being something that should happen during childhood development. All right. So adult literacy development is considered remedial. It's something that should have taken place but didn't for some reason. Meaning that the learner is correcting some sort of past deficiency and now uh, engaged in learning without the advantage of an earlier cognitive function, because we know that children, their brain development has a different capacity when you're 5 years old or when you're 6 years old or 8 years old than a learner when they're 20 years old or 30 years old or 40 years old. So we're dealing with very, very, very different brains when we consider all of the aspects of literacy development. When we consider language learning, well, native language learning starts prenatally. It starts in utero. It starts when the baby is still in the womb and the baby is listening to the sounds of of its mother speaking and creating sounds and engaging in discourse with all of the other people that you do during the 9 months of gestation period for the child. When we consider conventional academic second language teaching slash learning, we call this applied linguistics. Okay. So applied linguistics is not considered part of an education department. It's considered part of a language department. So if you were to go to the university and study your own personal language, for example, if you went to a university in Uganda and you studied Luo literature, if that's even possible, I don't know. Um, and we would consider that the Department of Applied Linguistics. Like when I'm learning Luo, that is an applied linguistics department within academia. It's not an education department. Education is teaching classroom management, perhaps developmental stages, but education is really designed and focused towards children, not adult learning. Thirdly, second language learners are always assumed to be literate in their native tongue. So when someone starts to learn, when someone goes to the university and says, okay, I want to learn Spanish or I want to learn Chinese or I want to learn Luo, we are assuming that whatever their native tongue is, maybe it's Portuguese, maybe it is Japanese, maybe it's um, uh, Creole or Calacar or Bri. Who knows what it is? But we are assuming that they already know how to read and write in whatever their native language is. But that is not always true for second language learners. The challenge that we all have within this program of the MEM Adult Literacy Learning Project is that there are few to no resources for teaching adult learners both literacy and language simultaneously. Okay, so so we'll talk specifically about the approach to literacy development. And literacy development, there's basically two categories of literacy development. Uh, One is phonics based, and one is whole language. And it's a bit of a contradiction to say phonics versus whole language. you'll see what I mean going forward. Um, but the majority of literacy approaches center on phonic awareness or phonics, or let's identify the sounds and how do the sounds go with the particular letters, the vowels, the consonants of the words. What are the methods that we teach to decoding what the phonics are, depending on the order of the letters in a particular word, so that the person um, can accurately decipher a text. This is compared to whole language, which is teaching all of the aspects of the way that humans interact with text as referring back to their native ability to speak the language. So here we have an image. Hooked on phonics really worked for me. And this is an apt joke for the problem of phonics alone. If you're only teaching phonics, English is a very, very problematic language to learn if your only education towards literacy is phonics based. And that's because English derives its lexicon, its body of words, its corpus of words from many different languages. And not all of the languages that it derives its words from are phonetic concerning the Roman alphabet. If it is a Latin word or a Latinate word, then it's probably very precise. If it is a Celtic root or a Gaul root or a Old English root, then it will be uh, in some ways irregular. And so we have those irregular words that pop up all the time in the English language, and we call those red words if they are irregular phonetically. All right, so phonic emphasis in literacy development. So we might focus on something like open and closed syllables to help us with pattern recognition in order to decipher whether vowel sounds are long or short. Um, and this is marginally reliable. This is a marginally reliable way to decode English. It's not 100%, right? Um, we focus on letter to sound correspondence. However, letter to sound correspondence isn't always accurate. Um, we also focus on a systematic approach. That means that we start very simple with like cat, uh, cat, at, right? So we have three different, we have a consonant, vowel, consonant. We're saying this is when you have a consonant at the end of a vowel, then you have a short vowel sound. So it should be ca, at, cat, or get, et, get, right? As opposed to an open syllable, which would be go, which would be go, not got, got, right? Um, and then we will branch into compound syllabic words like better, right? Better, or butter, or um, let's see, uh, acquaintance, acquaintance. Things like so we add more syllables when we want to become more complex. So a phonic emphasis starts with one syllable words, and then it grows to two syllable words and three syllable words, etc., etc. Always trying to focus on the most predictable decoding mechanisms. Um, Fourthly, many very, very successful phonic emphasis literacy development curriculums include multisensory integration because when you include sight and smell and touch and taste, all of those different senses while you're learning at the same time, it increases the ability for the brain to remember, because when you combine multiple senses into the delivery of certain information, the brain recognizes it as more important because you're using more senses.
Open and closed syllables. We are going to learn about two types of syllables. But first, what is a syllable? A syllable is a single spoken sound and usually contains a vowel and some consonants. You can notice syllables by how many claps a word has, or also by how many times your mouth opens. Every syllable has a vowel, and you need to move your mouth to say a vowel sound. Let's first look at open syllables. An open syllable is a syllable that ends in a vowel that says its name or its long sound. Look at this, me. It ends in a vowel, see that E there? And the E is not saying eh, otherwise it would be meh. It's saying E, it's saying its long sound. So this is what we call an open syllable. Go also ends in a vowel, and the vowel says its name or its long sound, O. So that is an open syllable. Now a closed syllable has one short vowel, where the vowel says its short sound, and it's closed in at the end by one or more consonants. So in the word fan, the vowel A is not saying its name, A, it's saying its short sound, ah. And then that short vowel ah is closed in with the consonant N. Remember that consonants are all the other letters that are not vowels. Wish is also a closed syllable because the I is short, I, and it's closed in by some consonants, that S and H. When I notice a vowel closed in with a consonant, it helps me read it because I know that the vowel should be short. So I know that I won't say I in this word and that this word is not going to be wish. I know it's a closed syllable, so the vowel is short. Now we can use a door to help us remember open and closed syllables. Look at this word got. It's closed with its short vowel and the T closing it in. Okay, kind of like a closed door. But when we open the door, now we have an open syllable with the long vowel at the end. Now the word is go. It has a long vowel. Him is a closed syllable word. Let's open the door and have an open syllable. And now we have hi, where the I went from I in him to I in hi. Here we have web as a closed syllable. When we open the door, the word becomes what? We. Now it's an open syllable. Bet is closed. Open the door and bet becomes B, an open syllable. Closed, here we have what word? Sock. Open, we have so. Let's see if you can remember which of these words are open and which ones are closed. Net. Is this one open or closed? Notice how it ends with a T and a consonant, and notice what the vowel says. It says eh. So net is closed because of that short vowel and being closed in with the consonant T.
Multi-sensory
Is bus
teaching.
open
Let's
or
talk about it.
closed? It's closed because of the short U, and it's closed in with an S. Is she open or closed? She is open because it ends with a vowel, and the vowel says its long sound E. Is kick open or closed? Closed. Is no open or closed? Bed and bug each have closed syllables. Compound words are pretty simple to break apart, but other words are a little trickier. To find where to divide the syllables, we have to remember that every syllable has a vowel, and so you'll look between the two vowels. And if there's one letter in between, try dividing it after the vowel. And if there's two consonants in between the two vowels, try to divide between the two consonants. I know that's a little bit confusing, but we'll do some together. So in basket, we see the two vowels, A and E, and then in between there's an S and a K. So we will try to divide it between the S and the K and see if that makes sense. So we would have bass and then ket. And if you look, both of those syllables are closed. Take a look at this word. Between the two E's, there's a T and a Z. So we'll divide it right between the T and the Z, and we would get pret and then zul. And here, pretzel, we have two closed syllables. Take a look at this word. Now here, there's only one consonant between the two vowels. Let's see if we can divide it after the first vowel. So we would have so, and then the next syllable would be low, which would make solo, which means to be alone or to sing a song by yourself. We could have divided it after the L, but then that word would have been sol, because that would have been a closed syllable. Oh, solo, and that doesn't quite work. So here both words are open. Many words have both an open and a closed syllable. Take a look at this word. Where should we divide it? Let's first try after the O. Then it would be protect, protect. So this has an open and a closed syllable. Where should we divide this word? Let's try after the U.
Okay, we're going to stop it there. The this is included in the or the link to this is included in this slideshow, which will be posted in the Google Docs slideshows, so that all of you can, at your leisure, watch these videos on your own if you want to learn more about that. But open and closed syllables is a fantastic uh, uh, introduction on how to decode words. It's not 100% in English. Um, and so if you have a word like care, C-A-R-E, that doesn't follow the same word or the same rule. So we have to be cognizant of the fact that English has several words. 15% of the words in English actually are irregular. And so, and many of those are sight words that are uh, imperative to learn if you're going to make sense, if you're going to read any text in English. You have to know all of these irregular words. We call them sight words because you learn them by heart, or they're called red words because they are irregular. Um, so we'll also watch this a bit of this video here on helpful hints in utilizing multisensory integration into your lessons.
Multisensory teaching. Let's talk about it. Multisensory teaching is teaching using multiple senses. So your sight, your taste, your smell, your hearing, and your touch. However, there are four primary learning pathways to the brain: visual, auditory, tactile, and kinesthetic. A true multisensory lesson will include all four of these learning pathways. Multisensory learning is particularly helpful for kids with learning and attention issues. However, it can really benefit all students. The more senses you involve, the more likely your students are to retain and recall the information. What's great about using Orton-Gillingham is that the method incorporates multisensory instruction throughout each lesson. So for example, when our students are writing sounds in the sand tray, they are using a variety of senses. Or how about pounding and finger tapping for dictation? If our word is mat, they pound the syllable first and go mat, and then isolate each sound with their fingers, going at, before they even write the word. Also, what about red words, right? Those non-phonetic words that we really have to memorize, we load them into our brain and we arm tap them. Again, incorporating all kinds of various senses to make sure the material is locked in. Last but not least, remember to have fun with your students using multisensory teaching. I promise you they're really going to love it.
Okay, so the Orpin-Gilliam approach is a specific approach to teaching phonetic awareness to language learners, to literacy learners, that pairs multisensory integration with the phonemic awareness. And you could all take take that video and go research that more if it's something that you're interested in. Okay. On the other end of the spectrum, there's a completely different approach to literacy development called whole language learning. Whole language learning includes phonetics, um, but it has a different approach um, to all of the different faculties that are engaged when we are reading and when we're reading for meaning in particular. So the reason that people read is for meaning. It's to access a certain message from literature or from whatever the text is, and then it's to be able to apply that in their own lives. And so uh, whole language literacy development includes phonics because it's a big part of how you make sense of the English language in particular. But it also considers context, word order and grammar or syntax, word parts, or the analysis of word parts, and word families. It includes phonemic or morphemic analysis, like are we adding a prefix, a suffix? What is the root of a word? How does that change with a prefix or suffix, etc.? And it includes those red words or sight words.
Andy Johnson, we are looking at whole language or a neurocognitive approach. There's a lot of negative emotional buzzwords related to whole language, usually because people have not read about it or understand what it is. What it is not. It is not a whole word approach or a look say approach. Yes, they both have the word whole in them, whole word, whole language, but they are not the same in of itself. Whole word is you simply look at words and memorize words. It is not and never has been that. It does not teach children to simply guess what words are, all right? We use context clues, word order clues, and we recognize that there is a top-down flow of information from the cortex to the thalamus, which makes it more efficient. But this is much different than simply guessing what words are. And it does not ignore phonics instruction. It's not the what of phonics instruction, it's the how and the how much. So what is it? Reading is creating meaning with print, not sounding out words. This definition is what separates whole language or neurocognitive approaches from a skills-based approach. We seek to help children create meaning with print. In a neurocognitive or whole language approach, we teach 6 ways, not 1, but 6 ways to identify words as we are reading, and they are all there. And notice that phonics is at the bottom. Not that it's the least important, but it is one of 6. We don't want to give 1/6 of an education. We want to give 6/6 of an education. We recognize that the brain uses 3 cueing systems, not 1, to identify words, and we seek to develop all 3 of these: graphophonologic or phonologic, syntactic, and semantic. We don't teach reading. We create the conditions whereby students can develop their ability to read and write. Once children understand the main concepts of prints, letters, sounds for sounds, put these sounds together to create words, etc., etc., they know how to read. Most of them just can't read very well. So they need some skills instruction, but they need lots of practice. Reading is an interactive process. Humans use what is in their head to make sense of what's on the page. So having stuff in the head and reading about things that are in the head is important. It utilizes whole to whole instruction versus part to instruction. This means that we start with reading whole meaningful texts or authentic writing to create meaning, and we provide instruction, skills instruction, quick, briskly paced in mini lessons, and then we get back to whole reading and writing practice. We see the whole, we get bits of instruction within the context of authentic reading and writing instruction, and then we do lots and lots of practicing authentic reading, authentic writing. We recognize that reading is...
Okay, I'll stop it there. You can finish that video on your own if you like. The approach that we're using with MEM and with the adult language learning model is a whole language approach. So what we want to do is move towards a whole language approach, including phonetics, but also focusing on what the learners already know. So when we tell a story, for example, when we tell a folk tale or a fairy tale or a personal story, and then the student has to read about that material, they already have a working knowledge of what the material is. And so decoding becomes easier because they're not having to search for or create a meaning out of the text. They already know the context that the text is in, and so they're 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 matching the text with the meaning that they already know exists there. So it's one of the reasons that we're developing this canon of folk tales and fairy tales locally, not only because we want the context and the ethics that are within your folk tales, but also because these tales, when they're told to the students, uh, are a primer for what they can then decipher. And so they already know, they already have a schema, they already have a network in their brain developed around the context. So you're helping them with one part so that they can actually, you can do discrete instruction on the pieces that they're not that are more difficult for them. the the idea of a multisensory lesson is something that we've talked about in previous trainings. But just to reiterate what was in the video two slides back, is that a multisensory lesson includes all of these. It's going to touch on these senses: sight, smell, hearing, and touch. And those are going to be utilized with the learning pathways of whether your learner is more auditory, maybe they're more visual, maybe they need movement and kinesthetic awareness, or maybe they learn better through touch. All right, what is the right approach or the wrong approach? Um, I will say the right approach considers the student's learning preferences. It considers the student's gifts and deficiencies. What is the student good at? What are they not? What do they struggle with? The right approach will consider the extracurricular realities of the student. What is their home life like? What is their occupation? What's their job? How do they supplement their income? Um, are they a mother? How many kids do they have? What does their life at home look like? That's an extracurricular reality that should be included in the right approach. Um, and lastly, what is their emotional and cognitive capacity? If they are worried, if they are stressed because of maybe home obligations in the home, financial obligations, something like that, um, are they going to be ready to learn? What is the history of their education? Are they already literate? Are they in a pre-literacy stage? How much of their own native language are they literate in? All of these need to be considered when we develop our lessons for our students. What is the wrong approach? The only wrong approach is one that doesn't consider the student. So if the approach is considered wholly based on whatever the teacher's learning preferences are, whatever the teacher's gifts and deficiencies are, whatever the teacher's concept of the world is, and whatever the emotional and cognitive reality of the teacher is, If your lesson is developed all for you as a teacher, then it's probably the wrong approach because it's probably not considering all of those aspects of your students. So when you're developing your lesson, develop it for your students specifically rather than what you think is right or wrong. All right, your homework this month. So you all have been delivering classes for several months. I would like to know in what ways have you met or exceeded your hopes for the development of your students? What has been extremely successful? In what ways have you been surprised and said, "Oh wow, well they understand this, or they really like to do this, and so this is very successful." I would also like to know, second, what have been the most substantial challenges to the progress with your students? In what ways have you hoped that they would achieve something, but it's just really more difficult than you thought it was, or than you thought it would be? And thirdly, what aspects of your instruction would you like help with? In what ways do you wish you had some assistance? What questions do you have um, about methodologies or techniques that might aid you in being able to be a better instructor? Thank you all for being here, and I look forward to our live setting. Thank you very much.